Yes, Deputy Tadier, a bit of a kerfuffle today in the scrutiny meeting. You left saying it was discrimination. What was that all about?
That's right, I left on 2 occasions. There was one meeting, I don't think you were present actually at the first one. Basically, Channel Television came in with their camera, and just as after they'd set up and were about to film, I said that I had to object and leave on a point of principle. You'd probably be aware that at the moment there's a disparity in the regulations as to who can film scrutiny meetings. So whilst it's perfectly fine for Channel Television and BBC to come in because they're what the states have deemed accredited media, it's not satisfactory at the moment under their regulations for internet bloggers or any member of the public who wishes to come in with a video camera.
It's supposed to be a public meeting, of course. In theory, anybody, or in practice, anybody ought to be allowed to be in there, and everybody ought to be treated the same.
That's right. I mean, in that respect, it's a public meeting as far as anyone can turn up. The only difference is if you turn up with a camera, you will only be allowed to film if you're part of what they call the accredited media. That's something which I don't think is fair.
Well, there's no regulation about what is accredited, what is not. So they've invented the whole thing. They've made it entirely their own rules.
Effectively, that's right.
Well, it's very appropriate that we're just outside the Pearson pub, which of course commemorates the Major Pearson who died for Jersey's freedoms, supposedly we're told, just across the way from the States building. What does it say to you when you've got this juxtaposition of ideas? Oh, you're complaining about discrimination just 50 paces away, and this guy died for everybody's freedom. What do you make of that?
Yes, Mike, I think you've raised a valid point there. I mean, you know, people have died in the past for our freedoms, whether it's been here in Jersey or whether it's been elsewhere. And effectively, in my own way today, that's what I was doing when I was standing up and walking out, although they're not really comparable. I was doing so on a point of principle. I thought that it's unfair that other members of the public, other bloggers who, should have the right to,
I mean, the point is now, more than 2 centuries later, the technology, the internet is changing the world. Jersey's got to acknowledge that it's changing the world, and people have got the rights for access to government, to know what government's up to, and videoing is all part and parcel of the process, and we can put up on blog sites or whatever, report them in whatever way we want, and everybody must have equal status. Why on earth is the state trying to stop bloggers and other people, apart from the accredited media, this cosy little relationship with accredited media? Why are they trying to restrict people? Why are they trying to censor people and to restrict free expression?
The bottom line is, of course, it's fear. They know that ultimately the internet cannot be controlled. They know that the internet, for all its good and bad points, it represents the democratisation of the people, but also of the internet. So it brings information to people. People don't have to rely on the conventional media, television, newspaper anymore. And perhaps to a certain extent, you would expect the resistance to have come from the media themselves, like Channel Television, the JP. Now that doesn't seem to have been the case. They seem to, from what I can gather, be either silent on the issue or generally supportive.
Well, they're presumably trying to protect their virtually a monopoly situation. You're on PPC, you're on the scrutiny panels. As this proceeds, what are you going to do? You're going to try and block it? You're going to try and prevent the proposition which is now going to come up before the States?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I've been consistent in doing that. There are 2 chairmen on the Chairman's Committee who have also been vocal in saying what a nonsense of a system we've got at the moment. It's quite clear what should be done. Anyone should be allowed to film subject to guidelines which everyone should sign up to, whether they're a pre-existing media or not. If there's been a breach of that guideline, then it should be dealt with appropriately, with the possibility of the licence for filming to be revoked, but it should be right across the board.
But the freedom of expression worldwide is such a fundamental right that people protect with their lives. Journalists, not thankfully in Jersey, but journalists all over the world give their lives in order to have free expression. I mean, really, to seek to restrict that in Jersey is a very dangerous area, isn't it?
Absolutely, I'd agree with that. I mean, freedom of expression is all well and good, but if you actually don't have any means of expressing yourself, then that's worthless. So I think we must actually fight to maintain people's rights in a practical sense and not just in a theoretical one.
Okay, we shall see how the latest Battle of Jersey proceeds.